Well, welcome to Discussions with Marianne. I'm Marianne Akon, welcoming you on Christmas Eve. Happy holidays, everybody. It's the 24th of December, 2020. And of course, everybody's getting excited for Christmas. Everybody is spending Christmas at home, I suppose, because, hey, 2020 and the Christmas celebrations was taken over by the Grinch. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about Zimbabwe. For those who do not know, Zimbabwe is in the southern parts of Africa. And on the show, as usual, I talk about issues ranging from education, health, politics, matters arising, not just in Nigeria, by the way, but we talk about other countries in Africa. I'm Marianne Akon. I'm a broadcast journalist, and I'm broadcasting live from Lagos, the economic capital of Nigeria. Now, today, the reason why we're talking about Bulawayo, which is a city and a province in Zimbabwe, is because from January 2020, the city of Bulawayo has been making the news, not for the right reasons, but because they have been having a water crisis. And today, I'm being joined by my very good friend, a friend I made last year from Zimbabwe, the very first friend I made in Zimbabwe before I met Wimbai. She's my fellow IVLP alumnus. We were part of the first ever Women in Politics IVLP, which is the International Visitor Leadership Program. She and I were representing our countries at that particular program. And today she's going to be telling us what exactly is going on in Bulawayo. But before I bring her up, I'd like to give you a little background to Bulawayo. Now, Bulawayo is the second largest city in Zimbabwe. It's also the largest city in the country's Matabembaland region. I hope I got that right. Anyway, the city's population is disputed. In 2012, the census listed it at about 653,337 people, while the Bulawayo City Council claimed that it had about 1.2 million people. Now, Bulawayo covers an area of about 1,707 square kilometers in the western part of the country along the Mashoshumphole River. Now, along with the capital Harare, Bulawayo is one of the two cities in Zimbabwe that is also a province. So we're not talking about a tiny village somewhere in Zimbabwe. We're talking about a city which doubles as a province. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to my guest for today. Samkaliso Chuma she is an on-air person. She does host a show on the radio in Bulawayo. She's an entrepreneur. She's a speaker, public speaker. She's great at these things. She's also a preacher, for those who do not know. She wears a lot of feathers on her crown. Samkaliso, it's so good to have you join us from Harare. I know you're an hour ahead of us. Can you hear me?
No, not Harare, Bulawayo. I'm a Bulawayo girl. Hi, Marianne. Yes, I can. I'm saying I'm not a Harare girl. I'm a Bulawayo girl. I live in Bulawayo, actually.
Bulawayo. I'm going to try to pronounce it right throughout the conversation. But before we start the conversation, people are wondering why such a big city, which is highly industrious, houses. I mean, I hear that cars are assembled and even sold in that part of the country. It's a big, big city. How did Bulawayo find itself in such a fix, a water crisis? How did it get there? Let's start with that. Oh, Samkaliso, can you hear me? Oh dear.
Bulawayo used to be in.
I'm gonna have to take Samkaliso out. I think there's a delay. I'm gonna have to take her out and bring her back in so that we can be on the same speed length. That way she can be able to converse with us on the same wavelength. So Samkaliso, I'm going to take you out and bring you back in as soon as possible so we can have this conversation. These things happen all the time when the internet is slower and the other is faster. But anyway, for those of you who are joining us, we are live from Lagos, Nigeria, and my guest, Sampuliso Chuma, is from the city of Bulawayo, which is also a province in Zimbabwe. Now, for those who do not know, Bulawayo is experiencing a water shortage, a water crisis, and it's been happening since January of 2020. There have been so many sides to the story. The government has its own side to the story. The people have its own side to the story. Even the politicians also have a side to the story. Everybody's saying one thing or the other, but the people are facing a water crisis. Imagine it's Christmas Eve and everybody's supposed to sit around the table and have a nice lunch, or, for tomorrow. I mean, for some people, Christmas has started already. For some other people, they're going to have a lovely breakfast tomorrow, a great day, but there is no water to make all of that happen. Imagine if you have to, kind of count the days that you have to take a shower. You have to go to maybe a place where the water is not treated, or you're not even sure what the source of the water is, to be able to take a bath, to brush your teeth, to even flush the toilet. We actually do not understand how important water is to life until you're found in a situation where you're unable to have as much water as you would want to, and so you find yourself rationing it. And don't forget, the body needs a lot of water to, for your body to function. So you're rationing water that you have to take in, you're rationing the water that you have to use in taking your bath, you're rationing the water that you have to use in doing the dishes, water that you need to do your sanitary needs, to meet your sanitary needs. So it's a potpourri of issue, if you ask me. I'm trying to see if I can get Sam Kaliso back on. As soon as she does come back in, we're going to continue this conversation. But don't forget, if you are watching us and you are watching us from Harare or somewhere around Zimbabwe, and you have been experiencing, or maybe you have heard about the water crisis and you have been commenting on it, or you have something to talk about, please feel free to join the conversation. Let us know what you think. We're live on Facebook and on Twitter, so join the conversation, post your comments. While we wait for Sam Kaliso to come back in, let's just say hello to the guys who are just joining us now. Thank you very much, Mark Goldman, for joining us from Los Angeles. Thank you very much, Lucia Aiba from Santo Domingo. And also Ohia here is saying, what's the Zimbabwe water crisis? Now, Zimbabwe is a country in Southern Africa, and Bulawayo is a province and a city in that country. So we're talking about the water crisis. It's something that has been affecting the people of Bulawayo city since January. Oh, Sam Kaliso, we have you back here. I'm so sorry, we couldn't hear you at some points and you were frozen. So quickly, tell us exactly what you're experiencing and how Bulawayo found itself in this water crisis situation. Has it happened before, or this is the first of its kind?
We have faced a water crisis for a long time, so this is not new to us. But I think this has been severe because sometimes we go for 6 days without water, and other suburbs actually have gone for more than 6 months without getting any water from their taps. So can you imagine during this pandemic where you can spend 3 months without getting any water? So that's what we're dealing with in Bulawayo.
Interesting. I know that for the water crisis, I mean, we've heard that the government in the city of Bulawayo is the opposition to the government, the federal government in general. And so they're taking different sides to dealing with this issue. How are the residents in Bulawayo generally coping with the situation? Because when you were off, I was trying to tell people that you never really understand how important water is until you do not have it. So explain to us what because you live in Bulawayo, how you're having to cope with the situation.
You know what, it's not easy, and it's our constitutional right for us to get water. And if you read our constitution, it clearly says that it's our right to get safe, clean, and potable water. And we are not getting that, and we get frustrated. And for women and girls, it's much harder because you find that we have to spend 6 hours, queuing for water. Like there are people are digging wells, others are digging boreholes, and some women I know that they end up walking like 6 kilometers just to get water. And I'm talking about women that have children, small babies, and some of them they have to carry their babies on their back just to go and get water. So we're frustrated, and when you try to voice out, your frustrations, you find that our government, our central government blames our local council, because if you understand our politics in Zimbabwe, our Bulawayo council is run by the opposition party, and then the central government is run by ZANU-PF, the ruling party. So it's hard, as a citizen, as a resident of Bulawayo, to get the water situation fixed, because there's so much blame game that is happening currently. And as a citizen, I just want water. I don't care about the ruling party or the opposition party. I just want to get what's due to me. So that's what we're dealing with. And when you speak out, like especially when you speak out against the opposition party, I mean the council, they'll tell you that you guys are just radical activists. You need to relax. You need to understand that it's not their fault. Because when you ask our local council the reason why we don't have water, they will tell you that it's because of the drought season, and which is true. Last year we had a severe drought, but at the same time, we have been dealing with this water crisis for such a long time. You expect our local authority to have a plan, but it doesn't have a plan. They'll talk about power outages. Yes, Zimbabwe is struggling right now with electricity, but come on. By now, we should have a solid plan as the local authority. The government needs to have a plan as well. It's not something that's new. This has been happening.
You picked on something that you and I have had a conversation about before, power outages, which is also an issue. I remember a time where I was always trying to reach out to you, and you'd say, "Oh, I'm unable to charge my phone. We do not have lights. We're having power outages." It was a big issue. And then coupled with the fact that you do not have water. But let me zero this into something that really is close to my heart and your heart, and that's women. And I'm not in any way saying that it's okay for men to not have their bath or enjoy water, but the people who are hardest hit are women, because we have sanitary needs. There are women who are also having to give births in clinics and hospitals. How do these people get access to water? How do hospitals cope with, sanitary conditions? And then, of course, don't forget, we're in the middle of a pandemic where you need to wash your hands off, and cleanliness is also a very important thing. And water plays an extraordinary role in all of this. How are women faring in Bulawayo with all of this, aside from the fact that the governments are, dragging their feet or being political about it? Are there people or private agencies that are helping to reach out to the women at this time?
Marianne, like right now, how in each and every situation, you have people that take advantage of what's going on. You find that with private people that are selling water, and as a young woman who has no income, because most of us, because of the pandemic, were forced to shut down. So where do we get the money to buy water from? Because others are selling 25 liters for $2, and you're talking to a community that is living on less than $1 a day. So these women end up digging wells. Like I said, other women, they have to travel 6 kilometers to other places where they can find water. And fortunately, the city council is trying by providing bowsers, but it's not enough, because I was reading somewhere and they were saying that each household at least should get 450 liters a day. So imagine if you're only getting 25 liters, what's going to happen? And especially in this time of the pandemic, and as a woman where you go on your periods and you need to be clean.
Okay, Sankuli, so it's a bit difficult for me to hear you. I don't know if you have to maybe use an earpiece or something, but it's very difficult. I'm struggling to hear you. So I did not really get the last thing that you said, but you were speaking about women. We were speaking about women and how they're coping with this situation because, people are giving birth. I mean, children will not say, well, because there's no water in Zimbabwe, they will not want to be born. And then women have to deal with sanitary issues, and water is very important a role to play in this situation. And of course, we're dealing with a pandemic where you have to wash your hands often, you have to wash your face, just we need water. I can't really begin to imagine what the people of Bulawayo are experiencing. But if you're watching us live on Twitter, on Facebook, we want to hear your comments. We want to hear your thoughts on this conversation. Be part of the conversation. Post a comment, tell us if you are living in Zimbabwe. Do you think the response that the government is giving to the water crisis in Bulawayo is acceptable? Is it good enough? Are they moving as fast as they should? I remember the first time I heard of this water crisis, it was in January of 2020. And here we are, it's December, it's Christmas Eve, and there are people who will still not have access to clean, portable, and safe water to drink, to use to cook, to take a bath. And of course, we know what's happened around the world when there is bad water. People are exposed to ringworm and waterborne diseases if the water is not clean. So we'd like to hear from you. And for those who keep asking me where Zimbabwe is in Southern Africa. It is, and Bulawayo is a city and a province, one of the largest cities in Zimbabwe, and it is facing a major water crisis. And this is what we're spotlighting today. Unfortunately, my guest is facing internet issues yet again. We will try to get her back in the conversation as soon as possible so that she can be part of the conversation. But if you have questions, you have comments, please feel free to share those comments with us. I see Mark Goldman here saying, I think access to water is going to be one of the top global issues of our time, along with the climate crisis, economic disparity, etc. Of course, very true, Mark. Aside from water crisis, we're going to have, already several countries in Africa are facing a drought of sorts. There's also been locusts have come to devour crops in, I think, Central Africa and some parts of it, East Africa. So they've had all kinds of issues with food crisis, and now we're having to face water. And then climate change on its own, a conversation that a lot of people are uncomfortable with having, is also part of the discourse. All of this is some of the things that we have to look out for in 2021. But the truth is, if we do not want these things to happen, we have to start, doing the best we can do. Best practices are very important, trying to make sure that your environment is safe, trying as much as possible to not litter our waterways. You see I went to the beach the other day. The number of plastic bottles that you see by the ocean, it's alarming. And guess what? If you do not take care of the atmosphere, it cannot take care of us. This is, okay, so somebody here says, Michigan still doesn't have clean water either. Oh my God, that's crazy. But anyway, she's back again. Let me move to another question. I did ask about the women and, how they're dealing with the water crisis. But let's talk about the hardships that people, businesses are facing. I hear that the economy has taken a hard blow because of this water crisis in Bulawayo. And as an entrepreneur, you who does your own private business, how have you been affected, and what are you doing to see if you can bounce back? Is there any end in sight?
With the city council, the plan was they make sure that they don't close water for industries. There are certain areas that they've not, where there are industries, they still get water.
Sam Kalisa, can you hear me?
I was actually asking if you could hear me. Can you hear me? Because I can hear you.
Oh dear, it's so tough to hear you. You are so faint. I am so sorry. I hope everyone can hear her. If everybody can hear you, I'm great with that. But I was hoping I could hear exactly what you said about how businesses are coping and if there's any end in sight. Can you run that by me again, please?
I was saying that the council, the way it planned, it made sure that businesses were not affected by the water crisis. So they're not getting shedding as much as us, the residents. So there are places where they try by all means to make sure that the water is there.
Interesting. Now let's talk about.
Did you get it?
I was hoping, in fact, the whole time you and I have had this back and forth on Twitter, I always paint a picture in my head as to what a day-to-day, dealing in Bulawayo would be like. I'm trying to imagine me who has to be up at 5 a.m. to get to work at 6 a.m. and and then you come back and you sit through traffic and then you're sticky, you come home and you don't have water to shower, or you do have a little water, but then you have to manage that water between your eating, your feeding, and also your sanitary needs. But paint a picture of how your daily routine is right now. I mean, you as Sam Kaliso, how is your daily routine, and how do you personally deal with the water shortage? And do you live with family? How do you guys do it? And are there cases where somebody takes somebody else's water and then you have to walk long distances? Because I've seen pictures of people having to walk distances to get water for their daily needs.
Okay, I'll speak from my own experiences, right? I stay with my sister and my mom. So usually we make sure that we fill 20 liters, 25 liters. We actually fill even the bathtub. So we always make sure that we have water to drink, we have water to take a bath. But also we're mindful that we don't have the luxury like other people where you have to bath 3 times or 2 times a day. So we actually keep water in containers, so we can keep water for more for 3 months, you know, just to make sure that we're always on the safe side because you don't know how long you're going to.
Okay, I get that. So how are farmers responding to this drought, and the food businesses, restaurants, and because I mean, oh my goodness, I think we lost Sam Kaliso. Um, I was going to ask how the guys who do the food business are able to deal with the situation, being that, I mean, you still need water if you walk into a restaurant. I'm guessing that if you have to buy a bottle of water, which has to be sent into, maybe you buy it from another city and bring it into your town, how expensive that would be now. It probably would cost an arm and a foot. But let's see if we can get Sam Kaliso back in so she can give us more insight to that. Okay, Sam, thank you for coming back in. Sorry, I know the internet is a bit dodgy today, but we'll manage as long as we can hear you. Um, are there cases where food businesses have to increase their monies, or the amount of money you pay to buy food or to eat at a restaurant, and the amount of money you pay for bottled water? Has it skyrocketed? Has it doubled? Has it tripled? What experiences have you had so far? Sam, can you hear
I
me?
can hear you. No, okay. What was the question?
Yeah, so I was asking, how are businesses dealing with it? Food businesses, restaurants. I know that bottled water, which maybe used to sell for maybe $1 or less, would probably be doubled right now. And are the food businesses feeling the impact of this food shortage? And is there an increase in the price for food now?
Oh, are we still talking about water though? Actually, as I mentioned earlier, like the way the city council planned, um, restaurants in the CBD, they don't get shedding like us. They still can get water. So with bottled water is still the same price. There's no difference. I've actually not noticed that there's any price difference. I feel like it's still the same price. But as I said, that with the council, the way planned, it made sure that businesses were not as affected. The most affected group is us, the residents. The certain suburbs that are really affected by the water crisis. As compared to businesses. And it would be wrong for me not to even mention how there's a diarrhea outbreak in Bulawayo because of the water crisis. We actually lost
Ah,
18
perfect. That was going to
kids.
be my next question because I saw that report on Al Jazeera saying that there is been a breakout of diarrhea as a result of, the water crisis. And when you went up, I also talked about the fact that because people are looking for all kinds of sources to get water, they might be exposed to waterborne diseases.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like as I said, that other suburbs have gone for 3 months or 6 months without water, so you end up resorting to unprotected, water sources. So most people are digging wells, and others are getting water from best water pipes that are close to sewage, sewage pumps. So we have
Wow.
an outbreak of diarrhea, and we lost 13 people by July, and 2,000 were affected. And these are most of them, they're young children, who are under 5 years old. So you find that there are certain clinics where they treat people like they get 240 cases every 2 days because of diarrhea. So it's hectic. We're dealing with the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, and we also have to deal with the diarrhea outbreak. And it's going to get worse if nothing is done, because I remember when residents were in Luveve, when they were complaining about the diarrhea outbreak, our city council kept saying, no, you're probably using containers that are contaminated, and which was not true. So this is what we're dealing with in Bulawayo, and I can imagine what we're going to go through. And the auditor general actually did a report, and she was saying it's going to get worse if it's not fixed.
Wow. I'm thinking to myself, I mean, I know you, Sam Kaliso, you are obviously, I would count you as someone who's a middle class, person in Bulawayo. I'm imagining the person who's living below $1 in Bulawayo and how they have to deal with this situation. What exactly is the government's reason? Because I've seen a lot of meetings that young people have come up with, and suggestions that they've made. I even saw one where they asked that $1 billion be voted for this water project come 2021, and it should be part of the national budget. What exactly is the government's excuse for this issue dragging on so long, and what's the challenge that they're facing as to making sure that this water crisis is a thing of the past?
I think I did mention that we're dealing with the government that blames our city council because it's the opposition that runs the city council. But the opposition only has a political responsibility, but it doesn't have the power to do anything, because all our councils are run by central government, by the Ministry of Public Works. So, and our government does not even have the will to fix anything. Recently, though, they said that they were going to construct a dam, but it's going to take a while because we're dealing with the government that doesn't have the resources, that doesn't have the capital. So we were just waiting to see what happens, because we know our government. We know that when it comes to these issues, it does not prioritize. They can say that the budget, they will allocate funds, but honestly, it will take forever, because for them it's political. So they want you as the resident, as the citizen of Zimbabwe, to think, what, the people that are failing is the MDC alliance, because that's the opposition party. But when you look at the Water Act, it clearly says that it's the central government's duty to supply water. And what the council can do is to treat the water and distribute. But constructing dams and all that, the responsibility falls on the central government. But when they're now politicking, they'll say the council is failing. So you keep seeing the blame game, you keep seeing them pointing fingers at each other. But
I'm thinking, because recently, if you know about it, Nigeria started the hashtag NSARS because we were tired of our young people being killed and harassed, and so people hit the streets. Now, and that's not even water. I'm imagining if we had a water crisis, I'm guessing that everybody would literally be on the street. So has there been any protest? And I'm not in any way inciting the people of Zimbabwe, by the way. I'm just asking how much pressure the people of Bulawayo have put on the government and the city council to get what they need, because this is a basic need. And this is something that is also a conduit that helps us to stay and live healthy. Any way you look at it, water is life. So how are the Bulawayo people pushing hard? Are they pushing hard enough to get the kind of response they want from the government?
You know what? I'll speak like on what I tried to do. I tried to organize a protest for water. I actually wrote a letter to the police to be allowed to organize a protest, and I was denied. And they say you can't
Wow.
hold a protest because it's COVID time. The lockdown, you have to respect the lockdown regulations. And even though you saw that the ruling party, they held their own gatherings, but when it came to a situation like this, where you are advocating and for water, they said you can't. But besides that, we have organizations like UPRA, that stand for resident associations, that have been really, pushing the city council and the government to say, listen, the water is life, like what you said, and it is our right. But other citizens, because of how the government always beats down on the citizens of Zimbabwe, others now, they don't see the need of even protesting for something that is rightful theirs, because they feel like, you know what, I'm just going to get shot, or I'm going to get, the police will beat me up for what, so I might as well just keep on, doing what I have to do. Like if it means going for 6 hours queuing for water, let me do it. But you're not going to find me on the streets protesting for water. So we are dealing with citizens that are already been beaten down. ZANU does whatever it wants to do. So when citizens want to speak up, so now citizens, they're now apathetic because.
Well, it sounds really bleak to me, the picture that you're painting. And we're coming to the close of a year. We would be expecting that every mistake that governments around the world have made, they would want to, correct those mistakes in the coming year. And of course, we, the people, being that, we are supposed to make sure that our governments serve us better, we would be continuously putting pressure on our government to do the needful. But you have said that, every opportunity to hit the streets and press home your demands was turned down. So what is the way forward in closing? Because we need to wrap up this conversation. What is the way forward? What do you propose be done to ameliorate the sufferings of the people in the interim? Because you've talked about building a dam, and that might take forever. But what can be done in the interim as we're dealing with a pandemic, which has now, we've now discovered a second strain? How do we, deal with this as we wait for government to do the needful? What are the interim things that we need to do to protect ourselves and, get some water to, run our daily needs?
The council has to come up with the solution, honestly. The council has to think about drilling wells and make sure that it delivers water to the suburbs that need it the most, because like low density suburbs, they have money, they can afford to do boreholes. But other suburbs, like in the high density suburbs, they can't afford to do that. So I believe that the council has to do something. And besides that, we need to have a concerted effort between the government, the local government, the local authority, and the central government. Because at the end of the day, as citizens, we don't care about who's running what. We just want water. And also in this solution, we need to have residents as well to be involved, because we are the ones that get affected, so we need to be involved in the conversation. They need to speak to us and ask us what we think needs to be done. But council has to really design a better plan and not always wait for every year, like towards the end of the year when we're now panicking. It knows that we don't get as much rainfall in Bulawayo, so they need to design better policies. So we're always talking about water harvesting, when we do these council meetings, but I don't know what happens, so they need to think about systems like water harvesting systems so that we don't always have to go through this every year.
Wow. Well, Sam, I want to thank you for taking time out, even though the internet has not been so friendly for us today, but we really appreciate that you've been able to tell the world exactly what's going on in Bulawayo. and the situation of things and the water crisis. Because sometimes when these stories are reported on the news, they're just given 3 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes on the bulletin, and people don't necessarily have a clear picture of the situation at hand. But you've been able to break it down to us and tell us exactly and give us a first-hand experience of what you are seeing in the city of Bulawayo. And we're hoping that the government would set aside politicking and really deal with the needs of the people, so that we can actually be able to face head-on the coronavirus pandemic, instead of having to deal with other epidemics and a full-blown water crisis. Well, I hope that you stay safe. Keep doing the work that you're doing, and I'm hoping that one way or the other you would be able to canvass more and more support, so that this can get more attention and the government can do the needful. And for those who do not know, Sankliso does host a conversation on the radio with all women. She's an advocate for women. She's trying as much as possible to make sure that the women of Zimbabwe embrace their rights and understand, come into their own, and know how powerful that they can be, and also know that they have a voice that is needed on the table. Sankliso Shuma, again, I would like to say, I met her in I think we met in Seattle, girl. Yes, we did. We were all part of the very first ever Women in Politics in IVLP, which is the International Visitor Leadership Program put together by the U.S. State Department. We brought together women from 21 countries across the world. She came for Zimbabwe, I came for Nigeria, and we clicked. And today we're having this conversation from Lagos and from Bulawayo. I'm hoping that continuously we will keep holding each other's hand, and every other woman around the world, so that we can get to where we want to. Thank you so much, Sam, for speaking with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I apologize for the poor network. It's what we have to do with. Thank you very much. Take care.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I want to apologize for the bad connection. This thing has happened, but it's Christmas Eve. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Thank you for being part of the conversation. Oh, no, I'm not British. I'm Nigerian. Fluffy Flack, I am Nigerian, and this is how we sound. I want to say thank you to everybody. Mark Goldman, Pablo, thank you for the award. Thank you, everybody who's commented. M. Cooper from Michigan, thank you so much. Luis Conez, everybody who's watching on Twitter, on Facebook, thank you for being part of the conversation. We will keep talking about masses arising across Africa, especially in Nigeria. I am Mariana Cohn, and I've been broadcasting live from the economic capital of Nigeria, Lagos. Have a beautiful Christmas, and I'll see you on the other side of 2021. Have a good evening.